Let's head up north now. Egypt is set to announce a detailed plan to offer stakes in at least 20 state-owned enterprises. Prime Minister Mostafa Madbouly says that the full plan for the sales will be revealed sometime next week. These 20 or more state companies will be offered for the first time. They will be listed on the Egyptian exchange. The Prime Minister stresses that floating these companies is one of the strategic goals under the recently announced state ownership policy plan. The percentage of the company's shares planned to be offered will be specific, and it will be determined by the nature of the company's businesses and activities. But let's explore this idea in a bit more detail. Adel Marouki is joining us from the Egyptian capital of Cairo. So, Adel, among the many SOEs that Egypt has, which ones are being seen by the market as the most attractive?
Well, two sectors, Rama, dominate the scene and are the most attractive. First of all, the oil and gas sector, specifically petrochemicals, where Egypt has been developing that field quite massively. And also with the recent explorations and discoveries the country has, there is huge promising results and expansions in that field. And this is one of the main sectors that will be looked up to invest in by locals and as well as regional and international investors. Additionally, in that field as well, there is Wataniya, which is a state oil services giant and is managed by the government itself. And therefore, this is one of the specific companies in that sector that many are hoping to see. And this comes gradually as Egypt is trying to move into expanding its state-owned enterprises, basically to boost its capabilities and come further. Besides that, the banking sector is also there to be on the agenda. Some are talking about banks like Cairo Bank, one of the state-owned and one of the biggest as well in terms of financial volume in the market.
All right, but this is not the first time, though, that the government has said it intends to float stakes in some of these state-owned enterprises. Back in 2018, for example, the government said it needed to raise about 80 billion Egyptian pounds, that's roughly $2.7 billion today, from listing minority stakes in 23 state-owned entities. Last year, I believe, they were talking about 10 firms coming to market, and that didn't happen. So why should investors expect this time to be different?
Well, it's a plan that the government has been planning and wants to implement for long. But what we've seen in the past 4 years specifically, as you said, the announcement was made in 2018, but look at the following 3 to 4 years. They were quite devastating financially and economically, not just on Egypt, but globally. You have the COVID-19 pandemic that interrupted all plans for this country, as well as now what we're suffering from the economic impacts of the Russian-Ukrainian crisis and all the turbulences it has caused to the Egyptian economy. So basically the government was waiting for the right time to begin the process. And what we're seeing from momentum, the announcement was made 2 days ago, and next week on Wednesday the government in its weekly meeting will be discussing the details of the implementation. So there are now promises with schedule about what steps will be announced gradually. The government also financially needs to move in that direction. Based on the agreements between Egypt and the IMF, the government has to let go of its governmental control over the Egyptian economy and gradually move into a free market. So this is a step closer towards that, and Egypt desperately needs to be meeting the IMF if it wants to continue its financial engagement with the World Bank and the IMF as well. Now the government, as we're hearing from the initial information being released, that it is aiming this time to include 20 state-owned enterprises with around roughly the same amount that you've mentioned, Rama, $2.6 billion throughout the coming fiscal year. This is the target by the government. More details, as you've said, will be coming out soon, probably after the Wednesday meeting by the Prime Minister and his cabinet.